Wale, you have the floor.
Good morning and good afternoon to those who are already in the afternoon period in their countries. So I'll be speaking to the discourse around protecting the activists or activists in dangerous times. So quickly, we have all talked about who the activist really is, and I would like us to also look at the proper definition in case we don't know, but I know we all know what activism is all about. The activist is that person or group of persons who make efforts to promote, impede, direct, or intervene in social, political, economic, or environmental reforms with a desire to make changes in a society towards a perceived greater goal. Our goal is to ensure, from our discussion from yesterday and today, is to ensure that we have a world that is free from pollution and a world that our children's children can live in safety, in good health, and be able to live a well or a good life, as we would put it. So every activist, everybody campaigning or doing one form of activism has a perceived greater good in their heart while trying to do that. But in recent times, like has been emphasized already, we are seeing growing increase in repression, in criminalization of acts of activists. We are seeing human rights defenders being killed around the world. We are seeing that the governments of the world, the big corporations, are criminalizing boycotts, protests. They are labeling activists in all spaces, giving them names that are not theirs, saying these people are dangerous people and the likes. But what we have seen in recent time is that they're all looking for ways by which they can make the actions of these people who are demanding human rights to be upheld for their people and communities. They are looking for ways to make sure that this does not go on or does not prosper in the land. So like I've already said, activists are finding it harder to support the protection, promotion, and fulfillment of human rights within the various social, political, economic, and environmental spaces, where they are using legal and they're using practical restrictions to ensure that they don't carry out their activities. Already mentioned. So a few examples that we have seen over time. Ken Saro-Wiwa was killed in 2005 for defending the Ogoni people and the Ogoni people's rights. Betta Caceres was also killed in 2016 for defending a dam project. And like we've already seen, Abba Jalingo was labeled a terrorist for bringing out facts about the government action that they're not taking in the right way. And he was jailed for a long time. He was jailed around August 2019. I was released in February 2020 because some other activists took up the struggle and supported him and ensured that he got justice and he was released. So this is just a call to tell us that our space for activism is shrinking and we need to act fast and act together as a group. We are saying, like I've said already, repression is increasing. The environment is becoming highly politicized, policed and militarized. We are seeing unprecedented attack on the legitimacy and security of civil society groups and activists all around the world. The spaces to depoliticize or to offer contestation on policy tables is shrinking. We are having reduced spaces. They do close down, like in Nigeria, for example, they're trying to pass a bill, they do it in secrecy. They don't take people along to contribute or make input. They do it in secrecy so that when the bill is passed, it's anti-people and they've already passed it and there's little or nothing we can do at that time. There's also, we're also losing spaces to contest. We are losing spaces to organize, we're losing spaces to operate, to protest, and to make our voices heard. So what can we do as activists in a time as this? We've already said it yesterday. Philip said it again today, people united can never be defeated. So we need to spend time together as a group. We need to come together and brainstorm on best ways to protect ourselves and protect our colleagues across the world and in countries that we operate from. So how are we going to do this? And let us see first. So for us to be able to protect ourselves, we need to understand the ways that the government and the big companies operate, how they operate to cause repression, to criminalize our activities, and to make our activities not legitimate. One way of doing this is like we've seen in some countries across the world, and it's even happening in some parts of Nigeria right now, where government is imposing constraint on the ability of CSOs and activist groups to receive international funding to support their cause. So we need to re-strategize how, Chibeze talked about this yesterday, how they in their group are looking at ways they can generate money within themselves to finance their project. So we also, as civil society groups, activists across the world, need to start thinking about this way the government operates and see how we can best protect ourselves against limited funding for our costs that we have chosen. Another ways that they have done, the government and big corporations have done this, is by lobbying and creating local laws that will regulate non-profit organizations, making, for example, giving very difficult registration process for those who want to register their entities to become a legal part of the system. They bring out so many laws that would restrain us. So we need to look at how best we can tackle this also as a way to survive and live as activists and fulfill and get to our proposed good or greater goal or greater good end. Another way they've done this is also imposing policies and practice restriction on our rights of freedom to gather, to assemble, and to associate. An example of that, when they make protests or they make our activities illegal, they term them illegal, they label us terrorists. Like we saw the case of Abba Jalingo. So these are some of the ways that the government used. They've also done by criminalizing, stigmatizing, and labeling activists and human rights defenders across the world. Like Enteng also emphasized in 2018, the Global Witness reported that over 164 killings have happened of human rights defenders across the world, and the number is increasing. So we need to take time and understand how they operate so we can also tackle them in the attack and be prepared for when they want to launch any attack against us. Another way they've done this is also to restrict our freedom of expression. In Nigeria, we saw early this year and late last year how the government is trying to put censorship on what we post or what we can say on the social media space, saying that some kind of statement that would make the label it hate speech. So things like this, we need to understand from where they are operating from so that we can also prepare our counter narrative or counter approach to survive in the space and also make our voices heard. And also, we have also seen that in recent time, they started generating what we call the gongos, the government-oriented NGOs, developing groups that would support their ideology, putting them forth like NGOs, whereas they are sponsored by government or they are sponsored by big corporations. So we need to be able to identify these kind of groups and also be able to tackle their actions where it arises. So now we've said, although governments around the world by lip service have said they have welcomed the United Nations Declaration on Human Rights Defenders, but not all of them, or not many of them, are not putting strategies in place to ensure that activists are protected. They've left this role to activists themselves to protect themselves. So we need to be able on our own side, while we are pushing that the government uphold the treaty that they have ratified, we need to also by ourselves find ways to protect ourselves as activists. So I'm going to be sharing some short ways that we can do this as activists. First, what can we do? We need to resist criminalization and demonization of causes that we have chosen to fight. How can we do this? It was emphasized yesterday and it's also been emphasized today. We need to operate from a place of knowledge. If you don't understand the cause that you are fighting for, you are as good as you already lost the battle before starting it. So we need to understand the cause that we are doing. We heard from Chibeze, we heard from Fatima, we heard from everybody that they have done researches and they are doing researches to ensure they know what they are talking about. Philip talked about the nuclear plant, nuclear action that has been embarked upon. How he, his team, and everyone in that coalition took time out to do researches, consulted widely. So we need to operate from a place of knowledge. We need to do proper research that will be able to resist every form of criminalization that comes up against us. Another thing that we need to do is we need to quit lip service. We should put action to words. Many a time we see civil society groups, activists, when they're in their own space debating on issues, everybody is saying, yeah, let's go, let's go, let's go. But when it comes for time for actions, they disappear. So we need to be able to move beyond that space of just talking and actually move to the place of action. And this will take some sacrifice on each and every one of us part. Also, we need to understand the distinct politics of repression. Ika just talked about how we should begin to question what's the terminologies that we often use: development, modernization. How we to question the just energy transition we are all pushing for. The question, like yesterday, I had a discussion with Nemo and some of the people here at the office. We talked about now they were trying to transit from dirty energy to fossil renewable energy. We are also seeing, like Ikal has emphasized this morning, that it's the big guns who are also forming now to become the green lords. They are moving from dirty to the so-called renewable, using the same method they have used for fossil fuel extraction to still oppress the people to extract for these minerals. I watched a video recently where Apple is now claiming that they are almost 100% renewable or clean energy across the world. But how are they doing this? Who are the people who are suffering the consequences of the extraction for the materials to prepare the infrastructure? So we need to understand the various politics that the government, the big guns, are using to cause repression or criminalize our action. We need to understand the frameworks that we have around the neoliberalism, authoritarianism, the global economic crisis. All these terms, we need to understand them properly so we'll be able to stand and together resist and fight for the causes that we have chosen to stand up for. Like I said again, we have to fight from a place of knowledge. Then we need to seek to understand and recognize that activists and wider social movements are part of different level of operation in their various countries where they operate from. What we would call repression in Nigeria might not just be, might be one step in another country in their own level of repression. We have seen in other parts like Latin America, Southeast Asia, people are being killed on a regular basis. That might not be happening right now in that number in Nigeria, but we should understand that if we support the cause in Southeast Asia and Latin America, many parts of the world where human rights defenders are being killed, we stand a better chance of that stuff not extending to us in Nigeria and Africa. So we need to understand and recognize activists who are doing this work across the world and find ways to support them and ensure that oppression and violence stops. We also need to rediscover genuine solidarity. We know, like I said earlier, there are some Go NGOs, NGOs sponsored by the corporation, NGOs or activist groups sponsored by the government. We need to understand and find out who these guys are and make sure they do not interfere with the causes that we are trying to fight. We should also understand the principle that injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. I've already talked about that just now. So we need to understand that whatever happens in other parts of the world, whatever affects human rights defenders in other parts of the world, is a possibility that it's going to affect us if we do nothing about it. So we need to stand up together, support our comrades all over around the world, lend them our voices, write about them, stand up wherever we are, and protest when we need to protest, ensuring that justice is given to the communities and the peoples of the world demanding for human rights justice. I've already talked about we need to give visibility to those who are struggling, those who are in the forefront of this activity. We need to support them and give them visibility. So I'm going to talk about some practical steps that we can use to make sure we protect the activists or find ways to support ourselves, that we ensure that we reduce the amount of death or number of deaths or number of repression that happens amongst activists. One way is to link up with groups or movements that have common goals with what we are fighting for. Examples are the Fishnet Alliance, like we have here in Africa, who is trying to connect fisher folks who are being oppressed by government and big corporations. This Fishnet Alliance tries to connect these folks so that they can synergize their knowledge, they can synergize their struggles, and be able to support one another when the need arises. Another one in Nigeria here is our Water, Our Rights campaign. This is a support group for people who are fighting against the privatization of our water system. We've seen the success in Lagos, where groups from environmental rights action partnered with labor unions to ensure that the privatization of water in Lagos did not have its way. So groups like this exist. Oil Watch is there, which Enteng has spoken about. GMO-free Nigeria, where they're campaigning that GMOs should not be allowed into the country. They are synergizing with other groups around the world, learning from them, and also strengthening the work they do. And most recently, we saw the Black Lives Matter. So these are some of the movements. We need to identify the ones that best speaks to our goal and align with them. The other thing we need to do is to sit down by ourselves. This is one thing that we truly need to do if we are to protect ourselves. We need to know who our enemies are. We need to know who our allies are. We need to do some analysis together. We need to sit down either by ourselves or as a collective and analyze the work we do. The work we do, who does it benefit? The work we do, who is it going to impact negatively? The work we do, who is it going to impact positively? We need to be able to identify these people and find the best way to ensure that there's a balance in the work we do. We need to map our actors. I saw this chart somewhere that we could use to do this kind of mapping. Who are the civil society groups? Who are the community groups that we are thinking are sharing the same cause with us? Who are fighting the same cause with us? We need to identify them. Who are those in the political space that we know we need to align with, that could help our cause, push our cause forward in the political space? We also need to identify them. Who are those in the economy? Who are those in the academics that we need to push? So we need to begin to do this. And this is not going to come easy. It's something that we really need to sit down, brainstorm together, and begin to align ourselves, find out who our enemies are, find out who our allies are, and begin to synergize. Some other practical steps for cases where we've recorded attacks on fisher folks, attacks on human rights defenders in every space, those campaigning against oil, those campaigning against big hydro dams, those campaigning against nuclear, and all forms. We need to create a security incident register. You might say, this is how is this important? If we have this kind of record, you know the dates that these things happen. You know the number of times this happened. You know the frequency at which it happened. You know the method by which these things happen. We can deduce a pattern and counter such pattern. So we need to develop a security incident register in our groups, in our communities where we work from, or who we work with. So we need to understand that we need to develop a security incident register. Another thing that we need to do, it might seem simple or too small, but it's important. We need to memorize some numbers and email addresses in our heads, so that in case you are captured somewhere, your phone is seized or one thing, and you find access to either a pay phone or whatever, you can easily make those calls to those people and help will come to you. I can remember a case where we went to a gas flare site in 2010 and we were detained there from about 10 till about 10 p.m. till almost 2 a.m. It took that one person had his phone on at a time, and we could reach out to journalists, reach out to colleagues who were not there, and they started bombarding the airways that we have been held hostage at the gas flare site by the Nigerian military. It took the intervention of the media, it took the intervention of colleagues outside to get the leader of the JTF to come to our rescue and release us from that arrest. So if we have some of these numbers in our mind, even if our phones are off, you have these numbers in your head, somebody's phone is on, you can easily pick that phone and either send a text, make a call, or send an email. So we need to memorize some numbers. Then we need to also make sure we keep our mental well-being. Doing this job sometimes can bring about fatigue. We need to ensure that for after every activity, find someone, either in your family or amongst your colleagues, who you can speak to and just share your mind. So the person doesn't have to give you an answer, doesn't have to give you a response, but this person can just help you unbundle, release yourself of this stress so that your minds can work effectively. So look for that kind of person amongst your family, amongst your colleague, amongst the allies, and find a way to always remove every uneasiness that you find after you've done your work. Another thing we have to understand, wherever we live in, we need to understand our area where we stay. As activists, because our lives are in danger, we need to understand the terrain that we live in. If we live in a community, understand all the exit routes possible in that community where you live. Take some time out, some of the cool evenings, take a walk around, look at where you can, escape routes that you can have for yourself in case anything comes up. This might seem like simple too, but it's important we have this kind of knowledge of where we live. Also create safe rooms and emergency exit in your home. And let your family and your friends or whoever lives with you understand that this is the safe. If anything goes wrong, run into this room and find safety. Or if anything goes wrong, run to this exit and find your way out. Create safe room and emergency exit in your homes. And also in the community where you live, be friendly with your neighbors as much as possible, but also be careful of the kind of information you divulge to them. For those activists who work online, data security is very important. I know there are several discussions have come up around the world on the use of even tools like Zoom, tools like Google Meetup, Google Hangout, and all those kind of stuff that we are now using as our means to do our communication. Data security is very important when we are doing this. So I'll just give us some of the tips that we can use to ensure that our data is secured. And there are more to it which you can research and use. One, in your devices, your phones, your laptops, your iPad, whatever device you use, ensure you do not use the same password for your devices. in case this has to be tapped. If you use different password, it is not easy to tap into your devices. Another way we can do to protect activists or to protect ourselves in the data in the virtual world is your email. I mean, your password should not be your pet names, birth names, or family names. If you tend to use those names, always mix them up with hashtags, arts, symbols that you can use to make it look complicated. Your password doesn't have to be simple. It shouldn't be what somebody will just look at you. What's his first son's name? What's second daughter's name? What's the brother's name? What's the sister's name? And they put a combination together and get into your device. Make your password not easily accessible. Use different password for different accounts. And do not write your password down on paper or share with others who you don't trust. As much as is possible, keep your password discreet to yourself or with people you can trust. Then whenever you're not using your computer, you're not using your device, ensure that it is on lock at all times. That requires a password, requires an access grant, a password to get into those devices. Ensure that when you're not on your computer or you're not on your devices, make sure it is locked or closed so that nobody can easily tap into it. And if you want to make use of your card or your ATM cards to make transactions online, ensure that the HTTPS is activated. HTTPS protocol is activated on that line. If you look at the web link and it's HTTP and the web address follows, please do not use your cards on such places. It's a dangerous place to go. Make sure the site is secured. Check if it has HTTPS, and this will help us secure some of our information online. And also be careful what you share. Be aware of this, that everything that you upload online stays in the server, even after you deleted them. So be careful what you share online. I'll repeat that again. Be careful what you share online. Lastly, I would like to talk about some of the things we just allow on our devices. As activists, we should be careful because in our phones, in our computers, lie sensitive information, not just for ourselves, but for our colleagues, of the kind of work we do. So for every application you download into your phone, into your computer, do not always grant access to the microphone or the camera or the photo and the video, the GPS location of your device to that app. So when it tells you, you download an app, for example, it tells you, allow this app to access your phone, your microphone, your camera. Be sure you know what you're doing. Do not just accept all notification that comes from the app. Do not grant all apps access to your cameras, to your microphones. They could be used to tap into what you are doing and be used to trace you and track us down and do harm to activists. So we should be careful about that. Also, when you receive emails from either somebody saying it's the government or somebody saying it's the corporation or some strange people, always ensure that the email is not a fake one. How can you do this? Take your mouse, hover your mouse over that email address. The original email will pop up and you see clearly if it's your friend or it was a hack. So we also should be careful about that. Then when we want to do some activities online that will require some form of secrecy, we should use the incognito tab in Chrome, for example. There's a tab that you can use that will not store your activity on your web page, so that if anybody mistakenly gets into your phone or gets into your computer, he or she cannot trace the history in your computer. So use incognito tab when using Chrome to safeguard some of our information. And some app now has a two-way factor authentication. We have seen a lot of hacks in recent times. So you can use that two-way factor authentication on your apps to ensure that your information on your phone, information on your computer, your devices are secure. So these are some of the ways that we can use. There are many more ideas that we can apply to protect ourselves and protect activists around the world from being harmed by government or big CSOs or enemies in the group. Thank you very much.